Welcome to the Late Night Race Review.
I can't say what the repercussions are for the team to know. Ultimately, he has taken responsibility for it, and there is a form of repercussion for that, yes.
And the sprint race is underway in Austin, Texas. Great reaction time for Max Verstappen, for Oscar Piastri as well. Lando Norris dropping down to third position at the moment. He'll be late on the brakes. Piastri's going to be hit by Hulkenberg, and the McLaren's made contact as well. Lando Norris, Nico Hulkenberg, and Oscar Piastri involved in contact in the opening corners. And we talked about turn one, and it's proved hugely consequential.
Yeah, someone just wiped me out. I'm out.
No, I'm sorry. So Oscar, be careful. We have possible suspension damage.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah. Well, I don't know what I'm going to do in that. I just got hit, right? So, no, I did nothing wrong. It's further back, things happened, and then I just got unlucky and I got hit because of it. So,
Don't forget to support the podcast by hitting those like, follow, and subscribe buttons.
Welcome on into the Late Night Race Review. My name is Aidan Scott, and joining me today is Isidro Gonsalves and Damien Scott. How are you chaps doing this evening?
Doing well, thank you.
Yeah, all good here. Thanks.
That's good. That's good to hear. Damien, what happened? The internet went down today. What's going on there in California way?
Yeah, half the world is down, right? Yeah, by some provider that shall be named. We will not talk about it, and we'll swiftly move on.
Unless they want to sponsors.
Exactly, yeah. Then we'll take your money.
Exactly. No problem at all. We're totally here. If you want to sponsor us, fire away. But word around the street is that apparently there's some internets out there by California way. For people who are listening to this, we're doing this a day later, and also as well, that was a South Park reference, but hopefully we don't find any spooky ghosts during this episode. So folks, with another week's break from Singapore, should I say another week's break from Singapore, we finally arrived back to the good old US of A to return to the Circuit of the Americas, or the Lone Star Le Mans. Or look, we'll just make it simple and say we finally arrived at Cota. And because the race wasn't over until 10 p.m, that's why you're listening to this pretty much either Monday evening or on a Tuesday. So yeah, we had to do it a day later. That's right, folks. We arrived at Cota, that one track with the Mount Everest of climbs into turn one, where the majority of the time you'll end up getting T-boned by somebody who thinks three can go into one, and you'll never guess what. That's exactly what Oscar Piastri believed he could do. Yeah. As this weekend played host to both the sprint race and a Grand Prix, we're skipping the majority of the F1 news, or should I say a lack thereof, and we're going to dive right on into the meat and bones of this weekend, the sprint race and the Grand Prix. And kicking it off with the sprint race, Damien, Isidro, I need to hear your thoughts on this one, because probably the most controversial aspect of the entire weekend was both Oscar Piastri obliterating Lando Norris at turn one on lap one of the sprint race, and the clip that's been circulating around the paddock regarding repercussions for Lando Norris from his incident with Piastri in Singapore. I mean, look, Norris literally tapped Piastri's wheel because, look, he was trying to avoid crashing into Max and nudge Piastri out of the way. But here at Cota, Piastri literally obliterated Norris in what many people believe was one of the most stupid moves to make at this track, and tried to do a switchback on Norris, and in the process took out Hulkenberg, who had to avoid Piastri, but Piastri ended up rear-ending Norris and taking both of them out of the race. But not only that, as a result of that crash, Alonso also got caught up in that carnage, and he was out. Now, the only silver lining I will say here is that Hulkenberg did continue on in the race, but dropped all the way back from P4 to the back of the pack because he had to change his front wing. But chaps, the word repercussions got thrown around a lot this weekend. And I'm sorry, if you're a Piastri fan, there is no defending this one. What does this mean for repercussions for a Piastri? Because if McLaren are putting out this image of wanting things to be fair amongst their drivers, with this blunder, will this particular blunder at Cota cancel out Lando's repercussions? Because the rumor or leaked information coming out of the McLaren garage was that these repercussions would involve Piastri getting first dibs on pit stops, garage positions, track positions, essentially putting all of the hurdles possible in Lando's way going forward. But if we're comparing incidents here, I mean, I think Piastri's incident is a little bit worse than Lando's little tire kiss in Singapore. First of all, chaps, will Piastri's repercussions mean that he drives out of the garage with a wheel loose or something, or possibly a delayed or an air quotes accidental pit stop blunder? Damien, I'll bring you first on this one. What's your thoughts on the entire situation and your opinion on that lap 1 incident?
I suppose in the run up to the weekend, as you're saying there, we had these interviews by Lando and Oscar, and yeah, I wasn't sure if this was satire. I was watching, Saturday Night Live or Monty Python or something. I was like, this can't be real. Like, it was absolutely ridiculous. They kept on talking about repercussions and this is going to happen because of this, and we're all friends now. And I was like, this is a complete joke. This is not F1.
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah, he had a smug little smile when he was talking about repercussions and it's all fine now. And I was like, what the hell is going on? McLaren, just grow a pair and, be a racing team. The manager or the people in charge there really just have to, pick a horse and go for it at this stage, Like, you can't be these papaya rules. It's not working out, They're going to have to say pick a horse and go for it, Yeah, it kind of really annoyed me for some reason. I was like, yeah, I hope McLaren absolutely take each other out in the first corner. And that's exactly what happened.
In fairness, though, I had I threw it into the WhatsApp group. I was like, I guarantee after Singapore, Piastri is just going to completely T-bone Lando Norris going into turn 1. But that actual crash, did not expect that at all to take both of them out. That was just ridiculous.
Yeah, it was like I was just looking back over the clips there this morning, and yeah, the more and more I look at it, the more and more it's clearly Oscar at fault. It 3-1 doesn't go. You could call it a racing incident, but you've got who was on the inside there? You had Hulkenberg, and then you also had Alonso, who was like right on the curb as such, and Oscar was slightly ahead of them, but he kind of turned in a bit too left for my liking. So he caused the issue. I'd put it that way. Like, you're always going to get a little bit kind of squeeze and turn 1 corners. But yeah, Oscar, I think he was at fault for it, to be honest.
100%. And like, the thing about it is, look, if you're an Oscar Piastri fan, more than likely the majority of fans that are of Oscar who just look at this with rose tinted glasses and they look beyond the issues, they are just going to defend that and say, oh no, look, it was a mistake. It wasn't his fault. He was just trying to go for a gap. He's trying to defend his championship. He's trying to defend his title. But at the end of the day, it's not his title. Yes, he's first in the Drivers' Championship, but that doesn't mean that it's his championship. And the fact of the matter is that, and that track has been since, 2012 or 13 or around that time when that track was built or that track was introduced. These guys have had enough experience and have watched people before them race at that track to know that going into turn 1 at Cota, at least 20 cars are going to try and fit into that one gap at turn 1. I mean, we've all done it on the F1 games. We've all tried to, fit into that one little tiny gap at turn 1 there at that apex, but it doesn't work because, and the fact of the matter is, in my own opinion, for Piastri to say that he's this championship contender and he deserves to win this world championship, that wasn't a world championship move. He did make the mistake, and regardless if you're a fan or not, that was an error on his behalf. So I think, this whole coming into this weekend saying Lando has repercussions from Singapore, it was absolutely hilarious. You just couldn't write this shit. It was just McLaren walked out of that weekend with egg on their face. And then Zach Brown, now he was quick to blame Hulkenberg to say that it was his fault. Like, oh, he shouldn't have been there. He's every right to be there, and I know obviously Zach Brown, he later apologized and he admitted that, yeah, look, it was Oscar who was at fault. But right now, I think the answer to this question is, I think McLaren need to literally not double down. They need to come out and say, look, repercussions are out the window. Let's just let them race. If they crash, they crash, and that's it. But then on top of that as well, the next question for both of you guys, and Isidro, I'll get your thoughts on this one as well. The next question as well, and I've heard this over the weekend, what do we do now in the instance where, yes, we have this incredible driver who's in third place in the championship, who's coming up and more than likely will bring it down to the very last race of the season? What do McLaren do now? Do they say, okay, well, look, yeah, we said papaya rules are out the window, but we do want at least one of our drivers to win the World Drivers' Championship. So do we back one driver in particular? Isidro, your thoughts on the whole situation there, and tell me what you think what's going to happen going forward.
I think at the moment it's just too late. McLaren should have kept their hands off of the decisions, just let them race. Or if they wanted to back up their driver, they should when Piastri was miles away. And that didn't happen. So best that can happen now, they just hands off and let them drive. If they crash, it crash. But I think they haven't learned the lesson that you don't mess up with racing. Just let it happen. Right now, it's the best I can do. It just leave it alone, because the more you touch the hornet's nest, the worse it gets.
I thought you were about to say Horner there for a second. It's like his name has definitely been thrown around the last couple of weeks. Now, the one thing I will say, and I'll send it on to you chaps later on, I actually did see a photo. Now, I don't know if, like, I didn't read the context fully, so I don't want to say like, oh yeah, this is exactly what it is, but I seen a photo there during the week prior to Cota that Christian Horner was having dinner with Zach Brown and the president of the FIA. So, you know, he's in there. I know this is a complete different tangent now, but like, he's still circulating around the world of Formula One. It's weird. It's like after you get divorced and you're still hanging out. It's like, it's so weird. Like, he's still in the mix. Now, I don't know if that was 100% this year or not, because you know yourself, when things go out there, you don't know, like, oh, was this taken last year or the year before? Sometimes it can be fake news or whatever. But according to some, like, and again, look, we do have a video out here on the channel over on YouTube where there has been a lot of rumors going around that he has been in talks with like Alpine and a few other teams and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, he's in the mix there. But anyway, sorry, Isidro, one question I want to ask you now, right? I know you're a Piastri fan. I think we've gathered so far that you're not in the Lando Norris camp.
No.
Do you blame Oscar for this incident at turn one?
Yes, totally fault. He should be aware that Hulkenberg was there, because everyone in the sprint qualifying was surprised to see a Sauber in P4. So he should, and the Sauber Ferrari was very fast on the practice and on the sprint. So Piastri should be aware that, oh, there's a fast car on my left.
Yeah.
And also there's another 16 drivers behind me. So he was not alone in that day.
No, he definitely wasn't. But no, it was definitely a huge blunder on the McLaren part, because at the end of the day, you know, like we're going into, was it 4 or 5 races that we have left of the season, and every single point matters to secure that championship. And to go in and to make that kind of mistake, that was a huge mistake. Now, I know Lando Norris, he's made a couple of mistakes in his career, and he's done a few things that people will be like, oh, you know, come on, you know, you need to do better. But that there was a complete clown move. That 100% was a clown move. Like, that guy has raced at that track many years now, and he knows exactly what that track is like. He's done it in F1, he's done it in F2, he knows what happens there at turn one. That was just literally, I just want to win the championship move. That's all that was. He wanted to prove that, yeah, okay, I'm down in 6th, but look at me, I can get to P2. But of course, he took out half the field in the process. But anyway, look, we could go on about this forever. Let's move on. Oh, well, actually, no, Damien has a point he wants to raise.
Yeah, and just say, look back at the clips this morning of it. He had space to his right, and it's only really when the contact happens that you can see the nose cone of, I think it's Russell, coming in to his right and behind him. So he had a car's width and another car's width to the outside of him. So he had room to go a bit wider and, you know, stay in the race and try to get the points. But no, he just dive bombed it in the middle of it and caused the chaos. So again, there, you know, is that a little bit of the nerves coming through, or?
Oh, 100% it is.
Not handling the pressure right now.
Yeah, definitely not. And you can even see like the steering angle of the actual wheel, like that angle at turn one. Like, of course, look, you know, not a lot of people have been to Cota. They're not too familiar with that turn one. But at the end of the day, you know, when you're looking at it on TV, it might not really do it justice. But that turn one is very, very sharp. Like it's, I don't know, almost 90 degrees that you're turning to get down onto those S's. But like, you could even see like the turning angle of that wheel. Like he was like at about 180 degrees with that car. You know, that was just a complete clown move. It was. And I'm sorry, like for these people who are constantly barraging Lando Norris with this, oh, Lando's bad and blah, blah, blah. The guy is in second place in the championship and he's literally sniffing on the door of first place of Oscar Piastri. And Oscar Piastri is the one who in the last several races has just ballsed up his chances of securing this driver's championship well before the end of the season. And this is why you have Max Verstappen literally on the heels of both of these drivers. He is just capitalizing on those stupid mistakes. But anyway, as I said, we can go on and on and on about this, but we do have to go on. After that crash and after that big, massive incident on lap one at turn one of the sprint race, finally the safety car came out and all of that, you know, all the debris and the wings that Yuki Tsunoda brought down at the bottom of the S's there, they were gone and everything was cleared up. Finally, we got back racing and George Russell decided to show his face and say, hey, look, I know I'm fourth in the championship and have a chance to win this as well. Decided to do a massive dive bomb on Max. And of course, he cooked his tires and then completely dropped off the pace. Of course, yes, I see what you mentioned there, Damien. Max did call it a little bit optimistic to try and do that. Definitely reminiscent of last year with Lando and Max at that corner. But then also on top of that as well, Antonelli, he did claim P8 for Mercedes. Now, I know there wasn't really much mention of him during the sprint race. But finally, with Russell, he did claim P2. So it was 7 points for Russell and 1 point there for Antonelli. Damien, what was your thoughts on Mercedes during that sprint race?
I loved the aggressive move from George. It was Max left it open a bit, I think, so he was well within his rights to go for it. And yeah, I think kind of Max actually kind of liked the move, to be honest, because in the press conference afterwards or the interviews afterwards, as you're saying there, it was probably a little bit optimistic, but he had a little bit of a smile on his face, you know. So I think he appreciated the battle. George had to go for it, you know, like he really had nothing to lose. And he was, it was kind of now or never situation, but he tried it and it didn't work out for him. And obviously they both had to run a little bit wide to recover coming out of that corner. And that was his chance really gone. So you have to go for these things sometimes, and he gave it a good shot, but just didn't work out for him. But overall, like you can't complain too much about the sprint race for Mercedes. They had Russell coming in P2 obviously, and Antonelli had a good race as well, getting the final point in P8. So 8 points overall for Mercedes from the sprint race. They'd have to be pretty happy with that, you know.
That's true. And with Oscar getting rid of 4 cars off the grid, it just made things that much easier for George Russell to get up there to P2. And of course, Antonelli to claim that 1 point. But of course, look, if you're not in it, you can't win it or you can't claim any points. But moving on, look, we had Hamilton as well from Ferrari, who was definitely putting on some moves on Charles Leclerc. I know Leclerc, he did have a few wobbly moments coming out of a few of those turns. The Ferrari car, it definitely looked to struggle over the weekend, especially like during the qualified sessions and the free practice and all that kind of stuff. But in the sprint race, they definitely looked to have some good pace. They had a great race overall. Hamilton, he was definitely really dialed in, looked really focused, and to be honest, he was determined to chase down Sainz to try and claim that P3, but unfortunately, it wasn't happening. And then eventually as well, we had Charles, who finished up in P5. Isidro, what was your thoughts on Ferrari during the sprint race?
I think they were Ferrari as usual. Not as bad as I thought they would be. They were slightly fast on straights, but problems with the brakes, and that on the sprint we could see that it was a different car that we saw on the feature race. So I think the sprint, they learn a lot on the sprint, even though the drivers did the best they could, but I don't think it was their day on that sprint. And I was surprised that Leclerc did that move during all the drama. Looked like a Mario Kart race from the camera point of view. It was great, but no, I don't think the sprint showed the Ferrari that we saw next day.
Yeah, definitely. No, it was definitely a different car that they brought between the sprint race and the actual main race. But moving on from Ferrari as well, eventually we had Stroll, lovely Stroll, taking a stroll through Cota, and then he decided to stick his nose right into Ocon's arse. And completely obliterate him. Now, in fairness, Stroll did admit he was at fault. There was no denying that. He knew. He even said so himself. He was like, yeah, I made the mistake. But he went for the biggest lunge that I've ever seen someone take at that turn one at Cota. He was so far back, and he was like, do you know what? I'm just going to go for it. And then, of course,
very optimistic.
He thought that Ocon needs a break.
Exactly. He was like, well, look, if Piastri can do it, and, I can do it too. But then eventually, because of that incident, we thought, first of all, there was just going to be a VSC, but then they brought out the full safety car because, of course, Stroll decided to keep on driving his three-wheeled Formula One car down the track, and then eventually parked it up around the S's, which meant that the JCB digger had to come out and take a while to get it back in behind the fence, which meant that the sprint race, finished up under the safety car. Definitely a disappointment. We would have loved to have seen some more action there. But then, look, it finished up with Max Verstappen in P1, George Russell in P2, Carlos Sainz from Williams bringing in a couple of points there for the team in P3. I think even he was shocked that he didn't realize. He was like, what am I doing here? And the cheers that he got when he was, well, they didn't really have a podium. It was more they were just standing on the track. But the cheers that he got for getting up there to P3 was great. So 2 podiums so far for him this season, which is awesome. But then also as well, we had Lewis Hamilton in P4, we had Charles Leclerc in P5, Alexander Albon in P6, Yuki Tsunoda in P7, picking up a couple of points there, and then finally we had Kimi Antonelli in P8 for the sprint race. So yeah, after the sprint race, everyone went to bed. Everyone was kind of like, oh, is this going to happen again the next day? Everyone stuck their Formula One cars on recharge, and we all woke up. Well, we were awake over here in Europe fairly early anyway. We had a couple of hours to kill before the main race itself. But eventually, the main race decided to kick off. And oh my Lord, it was a mixed bag of emotions when it came to this particular race. Now, realistically, there wasn't really a lot of stuff that happened during the Grand Prix, but there were a few specific points from a few specific teams that I think really did stand out. First of all, let's talk about Ferrari, because at the start of the race, Charles Leclerc, he was the only one who was on softs, and he decided, you know what, I'm just going to go for this. And he got up there to P2 and he stuck it to Lando Norris. Now, I'm sorry, there's been some really good defensive drives throughout the season, and we've seen it in seasons before and all this kind of stuff. I mean, Fernando Alonso, he's known for being a great defensive driver, but that race yesterday from Charles Leclerc, you have to give it to him. If you're not a Ferrari fan, you don't like Charles Leclerc, regardless of, that was just a masterclass in defensive driving. He held off pretty much the fastest car on the grid for, I think it was 21, 22 laps when eventually Lando Norris got by him. But then, of course, when the pit stops rolled in and then Charles, he overtook Lando Norris on track. Again, it was a case of Lando trying to catch up to Charles Leclerc. So, again, Norris, he was finding it a little bit difficult to get by Charles, and then eventually around lap 50, Norris decided to cool off the soft tires that he put on and then eventually give it another go on Charles Leclerc, and then he eventually got by him. But Isidro, I mean, that was just absolutely incredible. I mean, throughout the entire season, it's been hard to talk about Ferrari in a positive note. Like, we've had to pick out these tiny little things from all these little different races to say, do you know what? That was amazing. That was great to talk about Ferrari in this light. And then also as well with Hamilton, he had another fantastic race today, or not today, yesterday, should I say. Great race pace, even trying to keep up with Lando Norris, fending off Piastri and Russell, and then And at the end there, he had a little bit of difficulty. I think it was with the front right or something like that. He thought he had a puncture, but he still managed to hold on to that. So we had Charles in P3 and we had Hamilton in P4. Isidro, what did you think of Ferrari during the main Grand Prix?
I think I'm not a Ferrari fan, but I did enjoy the drive from Leclerc on Sunday. It, like you said, it was a masterclass on defensive drive, and it was amazing. And I'm not saying that Max would have won without this, but definitely Leclerc truly helped Max on that day, because the way that Leclerc fended off Norris was excellent. I mean, there was nothing more he could do on that Ferrari. He did the best he could. I'm happy he got the podium. He truly deserved that podium. Sadly, not the P2, because the P3 would be more interesting for the double DC drama, but still, a podium for Leclerc. He truly deserves that. Hamilton, it was a shame that Hamilton could not keep up with Norris, because I would love to have Hamilton start to picking on Norris and have two Ferraris fighting the McLaren in the middle. That would be even better than what it was. But maybe in Mexico we could see Hamilton in the podium this time.
Definitely. Yeah, because think about it, is like Mexico is usually a good track for Ferrari.
Yeah, it's not impossible. If they keep the same car, don't touch the car, just drive the same car if you have to Mexico City.
Hands off, don't touch, just leave it. Leave it in park for a mate for the rest of the 4 or 5 races we have left.
Just put new tires and that's it. The way the car is, I'm pretty sure they'll do very well in Mexico. But now, knowing Ferrari, we never know.
I know. Now, a quick little side note, I know people will probably find it annoying that we go off on these little tangents and stuff like that, but I need to quickly ask you, right? So this isn't just rumors or anything like this. This was actually said by Lewis Hamilton. He was discussing the whole rumors about Christian Horner and all this kind of stuff. The whole rumor about Horner and Fred Vasseur, that potentially he could be replacing Fred. Do you think that's going to happen? Like, what's your thoughts on that real quick?
No, I don't think Horner has the has what it takes to lead Ferrari.
He doesn't have the spicy meatballs to get in there.
No, I don't think Ferrari would give Horner the same freedom that he had at Red Bull.
Yeah, probably. Like they do probably. I know this is probably going to sound so hypocritical or completely way off base, but I know they kind of like to run a sort of tight ship at Ferrari. Maybe not on track, but behind the scenes, according to some people, they like to keep things relatively, tight knit. But yeah, no, look, Ferrari, they had a great race, and it was great to see them actually perform this weekend. They've had a lot of difficult weekends, so it was good to literally see them turn up to the races. But then moving on, look, we can kind of tie this team into Ferrari as well, because we did briefly talk about this. McLaren. So obviously, look, from a race point of view, look, we've talked about it. Lando, he had a very difficult time in trying to get by Charles Leclerc. Again, look, masterclass from Charles trying to defend from Lando. He was finding it very difficult. And then eventually, when he did get by him, and then again, when he had to try and catch up to Charles, he was on soft tires. He got the radio message to say, hey, look, back off, let the carcass cool, and then try and go after Charles. You'll have a couple of laps left to actually do that. And then he did, and then he eventually got by Charles, and he took that P2, which was absolutely incredible to see. And then again, this is just another point I want to make. Norris, he gets a lot of hate, and I know a lot of people have seen a lot of the mistakes that he has made. Norris has consistently owned up to his mistakes and owned up to the problems that he has caused, throughout the season, like even going all the way back to Canada, crashing into the back of Piastri, little mistakes that he's made here and there. But that kind of driving there today, yes, it was difficult to get by a Ferrari, but going into this weekend, McLaren knew that they didn't really have the car for Cota. They know that their car isn't really that optimized for this particular track, but he still managed to put on a really, really good race. It was a shame that it took that long to get by Charles. And then, maybe he could have had a battle against Max, which would have been great, because we did see Max start to fall off a little bit. He was like, I think roughly about maybe 4 or 5 seconds ahead of Charles at one stage. And I was kind of thinking to myself, oh, wow, we could actually have a battle here with Lando. But unfortunately, we ran out of time and we ran out of laps, and he got that P2. But then also as well, Piastri. This is the other difference as well. Piastri just was non-existent in that race. He was just complaining about tires the entire time. Had zero pace whatsoever when it came to the actual car itself. But look, I will say, look, he did well to try and keep Russell up, at bay. And then eventually when he kind of knew that Hamilton was struggling, he tried to claim that P4, but he just didn't have the opportunity to do it. But then inevitably he finished in P5. But I think the question here, guys, and I want to come back and I want to get both of your opinions on this one. So, the way to look at this is, and then we're going to be tying in the next team directly into McLaren as well. What does this mean for the Drivers' Championship? I asked the question earlier on, like, does McLaren now look at this and sort of say, well, okay, we've won the constructors. Yes, we want to let our drivers race and we want to let them try and go for the World's Drivers' Championship. But again, Max Verstappen, he is literally on the heels of both of these drivers. What does this mean now? Does McLaren decide, okay, we're just going to back one particular driver, so at least we have one of them who wins the Drivers' Championship? Or what do they do? Do they just let these errors happen again going into Mexico and then going into Qatar and Brazil and Vegas and so forth and so on? Or is it a case, does papaya rules come back into play? Damien, first of all, what are your thoughts on that whole situation? What does McLaren do now?
We kind of touched on this at the start, but yeah, if they let it go the way it's going, it's bad management. They literally, if it's papaya rules and that's the way they want to go, then fair enough, they've made the call. But papaya rules don't seem to be really working out too well, because it's kind of tit for tat, schoolboy tattletale stuff. It doesn't look good in the press.
You said tit.
I did. Yeah. Gather yourself there.
Look, we have to have a laugh during the episode. Come on.
Yeah, true.
But anyway, sorry. Go on.
Completely forgot what I was going to say there now. Yeah, no, they really just have to kind of pick an avenue. If it's going to be the papaya rules, then all right, that's the horse you're backing. It doesn't look good in the press when you have drivers coming out and saying, oh, there's going to be repercussions for this. The repercussion is whatever. They don't really say what it is, and we all kind of have to hear about it on the rumor mill. And it's like he gets first dibs on when to come out in the qualifying, first out of the garage or something. I was like, whatever. Like, it's not the way you run an organization. I don't think you shouldn't have chips that you kind of cash in over your teammates or within your organization. I don't know. I don't like that. The other option then is, go for it. No rules. We're racing now. And I presume they want the Drivers' Championship as well, because it's good for marketing. You just say like they did the double and all this kind of stuff. So they really have to choose which way they want to go on this, because if they lose, if Max Verstappen comes back and wins the drivers, it's one of the biggest screw ups in Formula One history, right? They've had it in the bag since halfway through the season, and now the bag is very much open again, so
yeah.
They're going to have a long conversation this week about which direction they're going to go. Either back one of the drivers or let them both go for it, or stick to their silly papaya rules. From the outside, that doesn't look great.
No, I completely agree. And like the thing about it is as well is that if McLaren aren't careful, they're going to be entering the Ferrari meme village of memes and jokes. Like Ferrari have been taking it for a lot of years when it comes to the big mistakes and blunders that they've made. McLaren are not slowly, they're actually very quickly going into the Ferrari meme realm of jokes and stuff.
The meme makers have the clown wigs and the clown masks ready for McLaren if they screw this up. They've been missing this year. Ferrari have been okay.
Yeah, exactly. We
haven't seen the clown memes.
Yeah, you know what? We actually haven't seen a couple of clown memes. I think actually, did we see one maybe around Miami? I think it was around Miami when Hamilton was like complaining over the radio. He was like, "Hey, you guys take a tea break," and all this kind of. Yeah, I think that's when the last time we seen that. We do need to see more clown memes. But yeah, no, look, I completely agree. I think if McLaren dropped the ball on this one, it is just going to be one of the biggest blunders in F1 history. And I completely agree on that one. I think it's just so silly that they're taking this approach to literally what like, okay, it was a mistake. It wasn't intentional. If it was intentional in Singapore, then I completely agree. There should be repercussions. If a driver intentionally takes another teammate out because they want to win the race, then yes, there needs to be repercussions. But again, they didn't analyze that situation fully. They just went in and said, oh yeah, look, Lando hit off Oscar. He shouldn't have done that. But at the end of the day, what about if it was another driver who was there instead? Everyone would be quick to say, oh yeah, look, it was just a mistake. It was literally just a mistake. Lap one, turn one incident. It always happens. But McLaren decided to double down and say, oh no, time to get the cat of nine tails out and whip Lando for a couple of weeks. You know, like that's just completely stupid and terrible management. Thank God I'm not wearing my McLaren top that I got there during the week, during this episode. I'm giving them definitely a tough time here, but I think it's justified. But Isidro, your thoughts on this whole situation? Do you agree with what Damien said there, or what do you think is going to happen now? What do McLaren do?
I don't think McLaren knows how to handle this situation very well. And the best thing that they could do is just leave it alone, because it's too late to back up one of the drivers. The window to back up driver was when Piastri was alone, far away from everyone. That was the time to back up Piastri. Sadly for Piastri, it was Piastri on top and not Lando, because I'm pretty sure if it was Lando that was that far away, McLaren would have moved to say, we are helping Lando to reach the WDC, and Piastri would just be helping. But they missed that window. So now the best I can do is just do nothing, because every time they try something, it goes wrong in so many ways. And
yeah,
they get a lot of hate for that. And eventually that will reach the drivers as well, especially Lando.
Yeah, maybe it's just a case of too many cooks in the kitchen. Just let them do what they need to do. Let them race, and just let it play out and see what happens. I mean, they're race drivers at the end of the day. They're there to race in a race car. They're not there to just, put their car in a certain position because their engineer says, oh, we need this for the constructors, or X, Y, and Z, because this works if we do it. No, just let them race. If you have the faster car, you show that you are the faster car and faster driver, and go and get the championship. None of this bullshit. Just stay out of it. Let them all race for the championship. And if one of them crashes out, if it's Lando who crashes out, or if it's Piastri who crashes out, then so be it. At least if they just give one of them the chance to just try and go for it, or well, obviously both of them to give them the chance to go for it, but at least if one of them wins, then happy days. They've bagged the double there, and they've gotten both the constructors and the drivers to round up this series of regulations. But no, I totally agree. McLaren just need to stick their nose out of all of this going forward and just let them race. But as I said, look, this brings in the next team, because I mean, this guy, like, we've talked about him every episode, and I think it's completely obvious at this stage that, Max Verstappen is more than likely one of the all-time greatest Formula One drivers that we have seen this decade. He is just absolutely fantastic, and his comeback during this season, this leg of the season, has just shown, what he is capable of. And look, I know I said it probably very early on at the start of the season that all my eggs were in the Piastri basket to win the drivers' championship, but Max Verstappen, I hope this guy wins. I'm just saying it. I hope he wins the drivers' championship, because he has shown why he is a 4-time world champion, and he is showing why he should be a 5-time world champion. And I honestly do believe Max, now that he has the car to drive and get those points and get those wins, he is 100% going to be able to do that. An absolute fantastic drive from him, from P1 in the sprint race and P1 in the main Grand Prix. He has gained 33 points on Oscar Piastri, which now means that he's 40 points away now from claiming P1 in the Drivers' Championship. Absolutely fantastic, and there's no faulting him. Like, yes, he had a difficult season. That definitely hasn't been one of the easiest ones for him. Very different to 2023 and a little bit different to 2024. But no, I honestly think that he could go all the way. But Damien, I want to bring you in on this one. Do you think it's possible for Max to claim that 5th World Drivers' Championship? And then, of course, look, we do need to kind of talk about Yuki, because he did have a few incidents during the race. You know, like he had a couple of incidents there, and he had one kind of, not saying major incident, but he had a little bit of a blunder with Ollie Behrman. I think he was being a little bit too aggressive. But hey, look, he still managed to claim some points, and he finished up there in P7. I think that was around lap 35. He had that incident with Behrman. But the fact that he was able to get up there in the points, both in the sprint and the main Grand Prix, definitely a good one. And I know also as well, he was complaining on the radio about Liam Lawson blocking him and all that kind of stuff. Don't know what was going on there. I think he was a bit off on that one, or kind of overthinking it. But anyway, Damien, what was your thoughts on Max and Yuki from Red Bull this weekend?
Like I think over the past couple of weeks we've been talking about, can Max do it? Is it possible? And we've been kind of saying, oh well, not. Yeah, it's possible, like, but it's a little bit far fetched. It's no longer far fetched. He's in this title race. There's no two ways about it now. He had the perfect weekend. He's 2 or 3 races in a row now where he's just absolutely dominating. It's the Max of old. Well, I suppose the Max has never gone away. The car's kind of gone a little bit away. And fair play to Red Bull. Since the summer break, they've been brilliant. They've obviously, aligned after the whole Horner situation and bringing in Mekis. He seems to have brought a little bit of a calming influence over the team. They've done some tweaks, I think, to that front wing, which has kind of, settled the car down a bit, and it's hitting perfectly for Max. And now for Yuki as well. Like, Yuki had a great weekend. As you said, he made up 11 places in the sprint to finish 7th. He made up 6 places in the race to finish 7th. Like, that's the consistency you want to see from your number 2 driver. That's world championship points that they're bringing in. Obviously, it's for that second seat in Red Bull, it's a little bit too late. They made mistakes there, obviously, earlier in the season and over the course of last winter break. In bringing in Lawson, then changing him out after a couple of races. So you can't blame Yuki too much on that one. But, after a rocky kind of start, he's starting to score the points now. So I think in his last 3 races, he's got 16 points. And he's only scored 12 points in the previous 16 races before that. So you can see his form is starting to come in. With the Behrman situation, a little bit of moving under braking. It was maybe a little bit cheeky, but at the same instance, Behrman was kind of going for it as well. And I like to see that little bit of aggressiveness from Yuki. We know he's capable of that, but I suppose he's been a little bit quiet in recent races. But slowly but surely he's getting there, and this weekend will have done him no harm in putting his hat in the ring for that second seat next year. If he can keep this up over the next 5 races, who knows what will happen there for that second seat. But fantastic by Yuki. And for me, if it wasn't for the really good performance by Leclerc, Yuki was driver of the day, in my opinion anyway. And Max, just doing Max things, scored maximum points, didn't put a foot wrong, and you have to say he has the momentum now to win the championship. No two ways about it.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I actually, again, I know I say it that at the start of the season, I was saying that Piastri, look, he could more than likely do this, and I was backing Piastri on this one. But to be honest, you kind of get to a stage when there isn't really a chance for somebody to kind of come back and do this. You kind of say, well, look, just let sleeping dogs lie, and then maybe he might be able to come back next season and he might be able to do it again. But you have to give it to him. Max Verstappen, he has just proven that regardless of the situation, if the team is on form, they're doing really well. If the team is struggling and they're at the bottom of the the shit bucket with issues, he can still come back and still prove that he can win championships. And I honestly hope, like, I know, look, McLaren, I love McLaren. I'd probably say, yeah, they're my second team to Ferrari, but I honestly hope that Max brings this all the way down to the final race. I really hope he does. And I would love to see a repeat of 2021. I know we don't want to mention the war. We don't want to talk about it, but I would love to see that happen. Could you just imagine the last lap battle between Max, Oscar, and Lando? That would be an absolute brilliant way to wrap up the 2025 season. And I really hope he does it. I hope he actually manages to get that fifth world drivers championship, because again, it will just show other teams that when you get to this stage and you get to the point where you are in charge of the championship and all this kind of stuff, these are the mistakes that you do not make when it comes to both of your drivers. And I really hope he proves that to everybody. But moving on from Red Bull, Mercedes. Isidro, I'm going to bring you on this one. George and Antonelli, yeah, definitely had a tough race. I'd say more so Antonelli. He wasn't having the best of races this weekend. Obviously, the sprint race, yes, he did do well, but during the main Grand Prix, it's just everything was going against him. And then eventually, when I know Damien doesn't like me talking bad about Williams or anything like that, but Mr. Carlos Sainz wasn't doing the most smoothest operation by sticking his nose and T-boning Antonelli. And then Antonelli, yeah, he, not crashed out, but he T-boned him and he eventually dropped down to the back of the grid. But he did manage to come back and fight his way through the pack. Unfortunately, I'm nearly sure he didn't. Where did he finish up? I think it was like P13. Yeah, it was P13. He didn't even manage to get back into the points. But yeah, he definitely had a difficult one. But George, wasn't really too much from George during the race. Like, yeah, he did claim P6, but there wasn't really much from him, bar maybe, I don't know, maybe at the start of the race when it came to him and Piastri. He was trying to, battle him, but that very quickly dropped off and he was just kind of sitting in sixth place for the majority of the race. Isidro, your thoughts on Mercedes?
Russell, for me, was completely transparent. I barely noticed that he was there. While Antonelli, he was in the opposite. He was always popping up on the screen, not for the good reasons, obviously, but I think considering that what happened to Antonelli, he did a great drive. I mean, surviving the crash with Sainz and then went back to the points, or trying to reach the points. I think he was behind Stroll, and then he had to go through Lawson and he had to go through Alonso, but nevertheless, I think he did a great race, overcome the issues that he had. While Russell, well, he's always very consistent. So it's not Russell's is in the starting grid and then shows up at the end of the race, and we don't know what happens in the middle because he's just transparent for the TV director. He doesn't do too many moves. He did great on the sprint. Trying to fight Max at least once. I mean, he had to do that. But on the Sunday race, I barely noticed that he was there. And I think that's what Toto wants. A driver that is there, does points, doesn't cause any issues. If he gets to the podium, even better. But Russell, he was just consistent as usual. Antonelli, we can say he's a rookie, but he's driving a Mercedes, and I think at least I was expecting a bit more of him, considering what Toto had to fight to bring him to the second seat. And I don't know, but he's still learning, even though he's learning on a Mercedes, which is definitely one of the fastest cars on track.
Yeah, for sure. Good old Sheriff Woody and Kimi Antonelli. And then, of course, as well, good old Sheriff Woody. He got his contract finalized this week with Mercedes. Finally, he got it finalized with them. But yeah, no, it was a bit of a weird one for Mercedes this weekend. But who knows? Maybe Mexico might be the track where they shine next weekend, and they stick it to both the McLarens and the Red Bull. I'm not going to say Red Bulls. I'm just going to say Red Bull and then Ferraris. But then moving on from Mercedes, just a quick special mention to Ollie Behrman, who did claim P9 despite that incident with Yuki Tsunoda. Behrman had that little incident there on lap 35. Now, again, I feel like it was a little bit aggressive from Yuki, but again, look, Behrman was just trying his best to avoid a potential crash and then ended up doing like a 360 at those final double right-handers and then double left-handers at Cota. Honestly, like that track in itself, I think it's a very impressive track, but that section just pisses me off. I hate that whole section. I really do. So it's no wonder why he ended up having a little tussle with Yuki there in that little section. But he did manage to come back and claim P9, so picking up some more points there for Haas. So yeah, folks, that was the lovely Cota GP. Now, looking at your top 10 for the Cota GP, we had Max Verstappen in P1, we had Lando Norris in P2, Charles Leclerc in P3, Lewis Hamilton in P4, Oscar Piastri in P5, George Russell, or should I say Sheriff Woody, in P6, Yuki Tsunoda in P7, Nico Hulkenberg came back there and managed to claim P8, Ollie Behrman in P9, and then finally Fernando Alonso in P10. So yeah, folks, that was your top 10. And then finally, we had one DNF, who was Carlos Sainz. Moving on to our next segment, folks, we had our driver of the day, our dick of the day, and our loser of the day. Damien, who was your driver of the day, your dick of the day, and your loser of the day?
Driver of the day, I had to go for Leclerc. Fantastic defending the whole way through. Actually, a great weekend for Ferrari overall. They did both in the sprint and the Grand Prix. They had a good race, pulled in the points. Leclerc for me. I said Yuki was a very close second. He had a great overall weekend, but I think Leclerc is the obvious one there. Dick of the day, I think our new Lawson is Piastri. we'll go again for that this weekend. Lawson's getting a break the past few weeks. Piastri, it was, the move wasn't really on. It was stupid. He had lots of room on the outside to not make that move in the sprint. And he kind of paid the price for it and nearly screwed up his teammates' race as well.
You could say Lawson was a bit of a tiny dick this weekend, just a tiny dick.
Yeah, less of than previous races. Yeah,
he wasn't King Dick; he was Prince Dick.
Yeah, there's a royal family starting to emerge there.
Exactly, the royal family of dicks.
My loser of the day, I'm gonna go for Williams. Great sprint. They were both in the points. I think they got 9 points between them. And of course, Carlos on the podium for the sprint, and then the race just absolutely fell apart for them. They both had incidents where they're crashing into people. I think Albon tussled with Stroll, which seems to be quite a common occurrence this weekend for some of the drivers. And he went down to the back and didn't really recover. And of course, Carlos made that kind of silly lunge on Antonelli and caused Antonelli a lot of problems. So he tumbled down. Obviously, Carlos DNF'd after the previous couple of races where Williams have been on the up. It was a real opportunity lost. So tough luck on Williams this weekend. Definitely my losers.
Yeah. And Isidro, who was your drive of the day, your dick of the day, and your loser of the day?
Drive of the day must be Leclerc. It was just a fantastic drive. Loser of the day, I agree with Damien. Williams, they were great in sprint, and then next day it was totally the opposite. They just don't know where to go. Albon was either crashing or trying to bump other drivers, and also not knowing where the track ends. And Sainz, like you said, he was not the smooth operator that we all know he was. So Williams definitely loser of the day. As dick of the day, I'm gonna go with Zach Brown.
Oh, I was wondering if you're gonna say Piastri. I was like, is he gonna say it? Oh, you let me down, Isidro. But anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, I did wrote Piastri, but then I got Zach Brown, because he's the one steering shit up at McLaren. And Piastri, even though he was a bit of a dick in the sprint race, causing that incident, not only making Hulkenberg, that worked so hard to get the P4, also making Alonso out of the race. That's two names that you should never touch. Norris, I don't mind. It helped the drama, but Zach Brown, the way that he's doing things, yeah, he'll be the dick of the day for me.
I completely agree. I'm just going to clip that whole little section there of you mentioning Piastri being a bit of a dick. That's 60% of the way of you calling him a full dick and joining both me and Damien in the Piastri "we don't like you" camp right now.
Yeah.
But no, I do agree. I think, look, it is more so Zach just getting in between the two of them, and I don't want to say, oh, he's trying to play both of them off, right? I don't believe any of that kind of stuff. But like, I think it's just more so that he is getting too involved with both of those drivers. He just should sit back. I mean, I know he's the CEO or whatever like that, but just sit back and just let his drivers race. Just let them do what they want and see what happens. But yeah, totally agree with that. But for me anyway, look, my driver of the day, I'm going with you guys as well. Charles Leclerc, fantastic defensive drive there, that entire race. I mean, that guy must have been pumping the sweat out of him by the end of that race when he got to the podium, having to fend off a McLaren. Have to give it to him. Amazing race by Charles Leclerc. And again, look, it was a shame that he didn't get P2. I would have loved to have seen him getting P2 there, but at least, look, he did finish up on the podium. My dick of the day, look, it's no surprise. I've been talking about this since the very start of today's episode. I'm giving it right there. That beautiful crown, the dick crown, is going to Oscar Piastri. That was just... He was a dick this weekend, and I think he kind of knows it at this stage. Or maybe he doesn't. Maybe he's going to go into Mexico and he's going to be like, nope, it wasn't my fault. It was just a mistake. But yeah, dick of the day goes to Piastri. But my loser of the day, I'm giving it to the McLaren team, because this weekend... nobody else bar themselves made them look as foolish as they did this weekend with this entire operation that they have going on. I've said it a couple of times already. Just let both of those drivers race and just see what happens. So my loser of the day, I'm giving it to McLaren. They had a chance there to pick up a really serious bag of points to stop Max Verstappen gaining on both of those drivers. But no, this is the situation that we're in. So McLaren, you're getting my loser of not even loser of the day, loser of the weekend. So moving on, folks, we're going to talk about our predictions game, because even like the lovely Formula One season, as spicy as it is getting even more spicier in our predictions game. If you've been listening to our previous episodes, you'll probably know that between myself, Isidro, Damien, and Dave, it's getting very hot and spicy there for that P1. But we are going to take a look at the predictions for this weekend. First of all, we're going to look at Dave's predictions. So Dave had Max in P1, which was a point. He had Russell in P2, which unfortunately was a no-no burger. And then he had Lando in P3. Very, very close, but no cigar. He also had Behrman outside the top 10, which was 0 points for that one. And then finally, he had Albon inside the top 10. And I'm nearly sure again what Albon he finished. Where did he finish? He finished in... Where did Albon finish?
14th, I think.
P14, that was it. So unfortunately, it was just 1 point for Dave this weekend. And every point matters. Every point matters as Damien chases him down. But moving on, Isidro, what were your predictions?
Well, I had Piastri P1, Norris P2, and Max P3. So 1 point there. And then I had Berman outside top 10 and Albon inside the top 10.
Yeah.
Albon let me down.
Yeah. You backed the wrong horse there this weekend. Now, unfortunately, I can't really say much about that myself, because it looks like I might have backed the wrong horse, because with my predictions, I had Norris in P1, which was 0 points. I had Piastri in P2, and he decided to, completely drop off the face of the earth. Maybe he listens to the show and he was like, do you know what, Aiden? Fuck you. P6 for you this weekend. So unfortunately, I got 0 points from Piastri. And then also as well, I had Verstappen in P3. But I think going into next weekend, I'm definitely changing my opinion about this one. Now, I did have Behrman outside the top 10, which was 0 points. And then also as well, I had Hadjar inside the top 10. I did not have a good weekend whatsoever. Terrible predictions. But Damien, go ahead and give me your predictions there. What were yours?
Oh, they were simply lovely predictions, as Max would say. I had Max in P1 for a point. I had Lando in P2 for a point. And I had Russell in P3, which was a little bit away, but a 0. I had Alonso outside the top 10, and he finished in 10th. And I was screaming at Liam Lawson in those last laps. He was going to catch him. I was like, come on, Liam.
Do something.
Unfortunately not. And then I had Hadjar inside the top 10, so a 0 there. So 2 points overall.
2 points overall, which makes Damien the winner of this weekend's predictions game. Well done, Damien. Well done. So that looks like now in the championship. Oh, it's getting ever so close now. We have Dave in P1 there with 30 points. Damien in P2 with 29. I'm currently sitting on 25, and Isidro is on 21. That is getting very, very spicy. But look, I might be sitting there on 25 points, but I have the hope and determination of a Max Verstappen comeback. But no, definitely getting very, very close there. It's getting very spicy. But hey, look, next weekend, and of course, I can actually say it's next weekend because we have the Mexico GP. We do need to talk about our predictions for that weekend. Isidro, what are your predictions for Mexico?
Oh, well, I have Max P1, Norris P2, and Piastri P3.
Nice, nice.
Let's see what happens there. Then I have Tsunoda outside top 10, and I have Antonelli inside the top 10.
Yeah. You know what? Like, yeah, obviously they're your predictions, but I'm kind of in the boat of like I'll go on to my own predictions now, but like, I'm kind of like, will it be Hadjar? Will it be Antonelli? Are we going to see? Like. They're both very similar, so this is where I kind of feel like each weekend when we predict either Antonelli or Hadjar, it's just literally 50-50.
Yeah, it's
But yeah, look, for my predictions, I have something similar. Well, actually, they are very similar. They actually are very similar. Bar Hadjar. I have Max in P1, Lando in P2, and Piastri in P3, and I've got Yuki outside the top 10, and then I have Hadjar inside the top 10. So that's the only difference between me and you. So could be a point that might separate us next weekend, Isidro, or who knows?
Know.
We both might be sitting on 0 points. Damien, what are your predictions for Mexico?
I have Max in P1, I have Lando in P2, and I have Charles Leclerc in P3. The Ferraris went well there last year. I think they had a double podium, so bring it back a bit of 24 Mexico spirit, yeah.
Now, just real quick, I tried to do that with the Red Bull Ring, and it completely backfired on me with George Russell. So just remember that.
Well, Ferrari have had a good weekend this weekend, and as Isidro said, if they just drive that same exact chassis down to Mexico from Texas, even stick it on the back of a truck, even just drive it down the highway, it's not too far. Get that car there; they're going okay. Stick a set of wets on it or something, bit of grip.
Yeah.
And I have, for my flop, I have Hulkenberg outside the top 10. And my surprise is Antonelli inside the top 10. So yeah, going for the Mercedes boys there.
That'll be an interesting one. And who knows, Damien, maybe next weekend it could be you taking top spot there. We don't have Dave's predictions yet, so we don't know. We'll have to see during the week. But who knows? It could be you taking top spot, or who knows? I could get 5 points and completely tie everybody for next week. We'll see what happens. But definitely stay tuned, folks, for next weekend to see what happens in our predictions game. But of course, look, that brings us to the end of today's episode. Chaps, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy afternoons to talk about the lovely Circuit of the Americas. It was great to talk to you about everything. It was great to finally divulge all of this drama and controversy and all of the action and lack of action in some places during the race. But no, it was great to talk to you this weekend. So thank you so much for joining me this evening.
Thank you. It was great.
Yep. Talk to you next weekend.
Awesome. And as always, folks, look, tell us your thoughts below in the comments over here on Spotify and YouTube and wherever you're listening to this. Definitely make sure to give us your thoughts on the whole McLaren situation, the whole Oscar Piastri and Lando Norris blunder. Tell us your thoughts about the whole McLaren management. Is this the right way that they should be going about things, or Or, what is your overall thoughts? And of course, one of the main questions, do you guys believe that Max Verstappen has a chance in claiming that 5th World Drivers' Championship trophy? Let us know all of your thoughts below. And of course, look, if you enjoyed today's episode, definitely make sure to click the lovely like button here on Spotify and YouTube. And of course, definitely make sure to click the follow button and the subscribe button so you can get our notifications whenever we post a new video or post a new episode over on our different platforms. So definitely make sure to do that and show us some love. But until next time, folks, will be back on Sunday or Monday or whatever day it is for the Mexico GP. Adios.